All right guys, we're back out here today. I just took some time to grind the paint off of these mounts that I made, and I got them stuck back in here, bolted into place. I got 4 washers on top, 2 on the bottom, and I just took a lot of time to make sure these things are exactly even on each side. Some key points I'm looking at, for example, the front of this engine right here on the heads, just below the valve covers, there's a little piece that sticks out here on each side. So I'm really focusing on centering them between the shock towers. There's not much room there. I'm probably going to end up notching them out. You can see on this side's harder to see. The dipstick tube actually bolts on right here, and it's got clearance, but I removed it just so I could get into this side a little easier to get this mount put into place. One other thing I've been paying close attention to is how the transmission is going to aim, and I'm making sure it lines up with the factory brackets here, so it'll come right back to the axle. And now we're ready to tack these mounts in. I haven't started on the transmission mount yet, but that's fine. These are going to get tacked into place, and then we're going to work on the tranny.
Whoa. Ah, fucker. God damn it, my eyes.
Why would you look at it, dude?
You should have told me when you were going to fucking start welding.
You didn't see the welder going in there? What did you think was happening?
Jeez.
I think I was pretending to weld. Tacking the Tacoma.
Hey Mike, I got a question. What are we gonna do with this Britney-sized gap over here?
Dude, I'll fill that just like I did to her. That's so cheesy.
A little less heat there.
I got the engine mounts tacked in. Now I'm under the truck taking a look at this transmission mount. This is the rubbery mount. I'm gonna get rid of the rubber just like we did up front. And I'm gonna have to anyway. I kind of planned on this because when we put this up here, by the way, this is out of the Tundra. Although either one will work. The Tacoma has the same pattern, I found out. But the Tundra has bigger bolts. They're like one size bigger. So when I put this up, it hangs down below the frame just a little bit, which I didn't want. So I'm gonna remove this mount, get rid of all the rubber, and cut it up accordingly, weld it back together. That'll sit it up a little higher. And the only real downfall to that is that this little spot right here is notched out for that front drive shaft, and I might have to notch it a little bigger. That's pretty minor though, considering. These rubber mounts are bonded onto this metal, and there's really no easy way to get rid of them unless you just burn them off. Now if you got a torch, the best way to do this is to just heat that metal up with a torch, and it'll just burn the rubber right out of it. But since we don't have one, we're gonna dump some used oil in there, see if we can get that sucker burning. Once the oil gets hot enough, it'll burn. The key to this is to get it burning and then just let it burn. Walk away from it, forget about it, let it burn. Let the fire do its job. You put the fire out early,
you're gonna have a bad time.
Hey,
hey, just follow me.
Hey, you going to wing it up or what are you doing?
You want to? Yeah.
When?
Okay, here's our finished product. Get over here. I mean, it's been a little while, but there you have it. Oh, look at how doesn't it look cool? That's what you want right there. Now look at that.
Transmission mount. It's a messy way to make it.
See, it was a little premature right there yet. I don't know how long that burned, probably an hour. Just so you know, about an hour.
I'll let everyone know it stinks.
It stinks. It smells like a burnout. And that's exactly where that's going to stay for the next couple of weeks. No,
it will never get cleaned up unless God or the wind or rain takes it away. It's gonna be there.
That's a good idea, Tim. God can clean it up.
God can clean it up.
We're kind of bolting everything back together now. I took the brackets that we had cut off the frame, bolted them onto the cross member, bolted the bottom of the mount onto the cross member, and I bolted the top of the mount back up to the transmission here. We're trying to get an idea of how short we got to cut it. I think maybe like a ½ inch has to come off the bottom of it. See how that's shaped? The whole bottom's going to get cut off of it. We're going to weld the top to the bottom then, but first we got to test fit this entire piece back into the truck. It's a little offset and it's a little too wide, so we're going to cut a little bit off of this side so it can fit up in the frame here. We took some extra material off here, got that thing up into place where it needs to go, And then I crawled under the frame and drew right where the frame ends up on this, because this whole thing is going to come off here because we're sliding it all the way up inside the frame. This was on the bottom of the frame, you know, when we cut it off, but this is going to tuck all the way up in now. So we got to cut this off of each side. I'm going to pull this bracket back off now, cut the bottom of it out, and then we're going to test fit it again, see how much more we might have to cut off of it to get it up level with the bottom of the frame, because I'm planning on this helping hold the skid plate in place. So I want it right against the skid plate. So now this thing is in two pieces. I got it bolted back up here, and that's going to give room for these bolts to come up through, and it's going to get welded like here and here. Does that thing look flush? Like frame rail to frame rail?
Oh yeah.
It's not hanging down at all?
No.
Sweet.
Maybe just a little tiny bit on that side.
Got a piece of channel here. We're gonna set this up on top of this and jack that up till it hits the frame on each side. That way we'll know this thing's flush.
This just needs tap
Is it
back a
smashed in there now?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing has to go forward, right?
Yep.
I'm fucking steaming. I can see the steam coming off my head. A little under an inch. All right, now that we got everything in place, we're gonna weld the mount together. So it'll be solid now. And I'm gonna put some tacks on the frame, and we'll tear it all apart, finish welding everything. I'm gonna weld as much of this bracket as I can while it's bolted in place, because if I don't, it's gonna tweak these arms around. It's not gonna bolt back onto the tranny very good. So I'm gonna weld it while it's bolted in there. I'm also gonna weld as much of these as I can without pulling anything out, just so it stays in place. We got these things welded in pretty good now. I'm gonna weld the front mounts in a little better too, because I really just have them tacked right now, and I'm thinking it would be best to get a good solid weld on them before I unbolt the engine and everything. And while I'm doing that, Dustin's marking these to cut off. Since we slid it up so far, these are sticking up above the frame, but we're just gonna notch these, fold them over, and then weld the whole way around the top. The microphone stopped working here, so I'm just gonna narrate and add some sound effects. Now we're going to clamp that down with these huge vice grips I got. By the way, if you want a pair, they sell them at Tractor Supply. And now we're going to use a welding technique that I just named. It's called the Tack and Smack. Hear me out, hear me out. That's when something's not laying exactly quite how you want it. So you weld a little bit and then smack it with a hammer, and then you weld the next part that you smack down, and then you smack it some more, and then you weld it some more, and then you smack it some more. So it's called the Tack and Smack. And that leads me to this next part. Remember earlier when me and Tim were clowning about how God could clean up my mess?
It'll never get cleaned up unless God or the wind or rain takes it away. It's gonna be there.
That's a good idea, Tim. God can clean it up.
God can clean it up.
Should not have done that.
And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
On Tacundra 25, I'm going to show you how to cleanly delete your air injection and EGR valves from the 3U RFE.